Welcome to Goodbye Guilt and Shame, the podcast where we dig deep into the truth, shine light in dark places, and create space for healing and restoration. I'm Jess Lane, joined by my amazing co-host, Autumn Smith. And in this special mini-series, we are unmasking the myths inside pregnancy resource centers. Across the country, these centers are being slandered, misunderstood, and outright lied about. The reality, pregnancy resource centers exist to empower women, not coerce them, and to provide compassionate, truthful care during one of the most vulnerable moments in a woman's life. These centers offer confidential pregnancy testing, ultrasounds, education, and essential post-birth support. And they do this all for free for everyone. So why the controversy? Why do pro-abortion advocates work so hard to discredit them? Because truth changes things. And when a woman sees an ultrasound, hears a heartbeat, and is offered support, not shame, she often chooses life. Over the course of this series, you'll hear directly from the staff and leaders of real pregnancy resource centers in Oregon, Washington, and some nationally. You'll learn what services they offer, what drives them, and how they meet women where they are with honesty, respect, and unwavering care. It's time to challenge the lies. It's time to slow down and get the facts. It's time to tell the truth about pregnancy resource centers.
And joining us today on Goodbye Guilt and Shame is Jill Marquis, Director of Abortion Recovery and Care for CareNet. Jill came to pro-life work in 2010 because of her own abortion decision. She spent 10 years in an abortion recovery ministry while simultaneously serving on staff at her local pregnancy center. Jill joined the staff of CareNet in June of 2021 as their first director of abortion recovery and care. She has been married to the love of her life, Dan, for more than 30 years. Together, they have 2 adult children, Drew and his wife, Liz, and Rachel and her soon-to-be husband, Nolan, and a child in heaven named Catherine. They live on the coast of North Carolina, and if you are ever looking for her, she suggests you head towards the water. Today, we're talking to Jill about CareNet and the ministry that she's a part of, this organization that marks themselves as a pro-abundant life ministry, offering support in several areas for pregnancy resource centers, churches, and the general public. CareNet provides compassion, hope, and help to women and men at risk for abortion. Their vision is not just to save babies from abortion, but to ensure that these babies and their parents have the abundant life that can only be found in Christ. CareNet does this as a gospel-centered ministry that builds strong families, promotes marriage and fatherhood, and connects people to their local churches for ongoing care and discipleship. They do this through pregnancy resource affiliations, a national pregnancy decision hotline, and church engagement. Please read and learn more at care-net.org. If this episode moves you, challenges you, or even makes you curious to learn more, don't stop here. Like, follow, download, and share this podcast miniseries to help spread awareness and highlight the vital resources we discuss. We're available on all of your listening platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. Have questions or a story to share? We'd love to hear from you at ask@restorednation.org. This episode is sponsored by Restored Nation, an organization helping people heal from grief, trauma, addiction, and post-abortion pain through no-cost trauma-informed support groups and retreats. Their offerings include miscarriage grief care sessions, after-abortion recovery groups, and the impactful Unraveled Roots group, designed to explore the deeper why behind harmful patterns and behaviors, helping participants identify root causes and begin true healing. To find a group, sign up for a retreat, or support the mission, visit restorednation.org. We're proud to have them as a sponsor of this mini-series and grateful for the hope and healing they're bringing.
All right. Welcome to the show, Jill. We are so glad that you are here. I'm so glad that you're with us today. I'm so thankful that you said yes to this project, and you are truly one of my favorite people. And so We're just very honored that you're here and that you're willing to talk to us about how CareNet is serving women and families across the
Oh, well,
nation.
gosh, thank you so much for the invitation. Any opportunity that I get to share the mission and vision of CareNet and how we seek to help people who are facing a pregnancy decision and serve those who have maybe made a decision for abortion, I'm all in. Love to talk about my work.
Yes. Yes. So the goal for this mini series is to share the unknown facts with our listeners about the clinics that serve pregnant women and families. We hope to lovingly expose the myths and lies spoken about these clinics, which include dismissing them as valid because they may have been founded by faith-based groups or supported by faith communities. We're glad you're here for this conversation.
Awesome. So as we're getting started, would you mind, Jill, introducing yourself and give us some 3 or 4 fun facts about yourself? We would love to get to know a little bit more about you.
My name is Jill Marquis. I serve as CareNet's Director of Abortion Recovery and Care, which is a position I've been in now for 4 years, and I can't imagine being anyplace else. I have been married to my husband, Dan, for 33 years next Friday. We have 2 kids.
Wow.
Actually, we have 3 children. Let me reframe that. We have 1 child in heaven. Her name is Catherine, and she was our child lost to abortion. And then we have Drew, who is married to Liz, and Rachel, who is getting married to Nolan in wow, why did I think November? Where did that come from? So yeah, my husband and I live out on the coast of North Carolina, and I get the opportunity to do this work around the country, and I'm just thrilled to be part of it. You asked for some fun facts. Okay. When I was in college, I applied to the CIA because I wanted to do like spy things.
That's awesome.
I'm a huge fan of spy novels. Like to crochet. That's my old lady habit that I have. And I am an avid runner and workout fiend now at this point in my life.
Those are awesome fun facts. That is amazing. I am like both equally shocked and amazed. That's amazing. I can relate to old lady habits. I go to bed real early and I don't really do a whole lot of young activities very often. So I can understand and relate. And good for you on your fitness
Well,
journey. That is
thank you.
awesome. That is great. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about CareNet? How did it come to be and what does it do exactly?
Okay. I always tell people that CareNet is like the Lowe's or Home Depot for pregnancy centers. We are an umbrella organization that serves about 1,200 crisis pregnancy centers around the country. We have the tools to help pregnancy centers run better. If they need to train their board of directors, if they want to be a medical clinic, what does it look like to go medical and what do you need? How do you train your volunteers? What are best practices inside the pregnancy center for serving clients? So we have a whole plethora of services and courses that we offer pregnancy centers. Like I said, everything from board of directors to fatherhood programs to medical to abortion recovery. And I would love to share with you guys the mission of CareNet. So CareNet was actually started 50 years ago. We celebrate our 50th anniversary this year. Um,
That's incredible.
I know. So 50 years in this type of ministry, really, there was a group of people that came together in Charlotte, North Carolina, and created what was called the Christian Action Council. And they started in response to Roe versus Wade. And they recognized that, okay, if abortion is now going to be the law of the land, how do we serve women and men who are facing a crisis pregnancy? So CareNet's mission says, acknowledging that every human life begins at conception and is worthy of protection, CareNet offers compassion, hope, and help to anyone considering abortion by presenting them with realistic alternatives and Christ-centered support through our life-affirming network of pregnancy centers, churches, organizations, and individuals. So we very much believe in meeting people right where they are, with in their pregnancy. And like I said, we help the pregnancy centers do their job to the best of their ability. And we are unashamedly an evangelical organization because we know that people need Jesus more than they need anything else. And that also comes through in CareNet's vision, which says that CareNet envisions a culture where women and men faced with pregnancy decisions are transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ and empowered to choose life for their unborn children and abundant life for their families. And that permeates everything that we do. We're looking at this through the lens of John 10:10. Christ said he came so that we would have life and have it abundantly. And we know that choosing abortion is that's not an abundant life decision. So how do we help our pregnancy centers come alongside that young woman and young man and provide them services and resources to help alleviate the pressure that's pushing them towards abortion?
Wow. That's amazing. That's a lot to
Yeah.
take in, but I'm just so grateful that exists. It is so important to equip people with the knowledge and to give them the advocacy and the behind the scenes support that goes into them being able to support the community of women and men facing that huge decision of life. And yeah, that is really neat. And thank you so much for sharing that vision
Yeah.
vision and mission that you shared. That was really neat. Yeah. I'd love to ask you on a personal note and also for CareNet as well. What is the heartbeat behind what the work that you do with CareNet, and also what is the heartbeat behind CareNet's work in general? Do you mind sharing anything about that
Sure.
for us?
I came into this work as a result of my own abortion decision in my early 20s. But it took me, I'm a little bit of a slow study on some things. It took me a number of years before I came to the recognition that I needed to deal with my own abortion and how it had affected my life and how it has influenced pretty much every decision that I make. We often will say that choosing abortion is like being in a car accident where the windshield is shattered. You can still see through it, but you can't see clearly through it. You are navigating the world with a broken perspective. And that was me. I navigated the world with this broken perspective for a number of years. And it wasn't until I really became a Christ follower that I recognized I have got to deal with this. I became a Christian, yeah, probably 12, 13 years old, but I really didn't become a Christ follower until my mid 30s. And that was where there was just such a paradigm shift in my thinking. And I when I started getting really involved with women's ministry at my church, it was at that point that the Lord was really dealing with me about my own abortion, and that in order to serve, I needed to be free from this shame and from this guilt, and which led me to an abortion recovery study that literally changed my life, that truly brought me to my knees before the Lord. And that's what ultimately brought me to CareNet. I worked in my local pregnancy center for about 7.5, 8 years before I came to work for CareNet. And I've worked in abortion recovery since about 2013. So that's what got me here. And the heart behind CareNet's work is to really to come alongside, like I said, to come alongside women and men who are faced with that pregnancy decision, knowing that God has a plan and a purpose for that baby, even though they can't see it right now. And so to help those young people see beyond this current crisis, when the crisis looms so large and you can't see anything else, the people in our pregnancy centers help people take a step back, take a breath, and the pregnancy centers help present to them, here are all of the options that are open to you. Is abortion one of them? Yes, it is. And we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the risks of choosing abortion. We also want to talk with you about caring and parenting, what that can look like in your life. Would adoption come into your way of thinking? If so, let's talk about that. And in all of this, the pregnancy centers are bringing all of the things to the table to help someone make a decision for life. And that's why we exist, is to help them make a
Mhm.
decision for life and point them towards Jesus with every step.
Wow. Yeah. I really like that metaphor you used of just people having to see through a cracked windshield, and that distorted vision can really harm them. And I really resonate with your story. Thank you for being vulnerable. It seems like a common thread through what you said was you guys talk. You actually bring to light and talk through and work through with dialogue, with conversation, all of the people's options that they have. And so that is just really important for our listeners, I think, to hear that these conversations are not one sided. They are not pushing an agenda, but actually having open discussion, probably answering questions, thoroughly walking through every option that parents are facing. Yeah, that's really neat. Would you mind clarifying one thing for me, even? You had mentioned that you guys are like the Lowe's and Home Depot. And so you're offering resources and things for pregnancy resource centers to gain and for their own sake to bring to these folks who are needing this kind of care. Do any of your services distinguish you from the pregnancy resource centers in the way that do you offer anything for the public as well? Or is this specifically for pregnancy resource center staff? Do you mind
That is
clarifying
such
that?
a great question, and I'm so glad you asked it. CareNet really wants to provide, I call it wraparound care, right? We want to care for her. And this is going to be a longer answer to your question, but I promise I'll get there.
That's
Okay, good.
okay.
In providing this kind of this wraparound care, when you think about the problem that when somebody is in a crisis pregnancy, the pregnancy center is prayerfully intercepting them upstream of before she's made an abortion decision. So the pregnancy centers is upstream of that. We also want to care for her if she chooses abortion. And so what I get to do is we're downstream of this. She's already made that decision and he's made that decision. We know that there's fallout from that for both the woman and the man. And so when I say we do this wraparound care, that's one way that I mean it, that we want to serve them before they make the abortion decision. And then if they've made it, we want to serve them and love them and care for them because we know they're going to need it on the backside of that. In terms of what CareNet offers, yes, our focus is on pregnancy centers and equipping them. But the department I work under is our church initiative, our church engagement department. So abortion recovery and care falls under church engagement. And part of what I get to do is educate the church on abortion, what it looks like on the front end, what it looks like on the back end. And so we want to have the church be such a vital part of the pregnancy center because the pregnancy center's job is to serve the abortion determined client. And once they have that client in a place of relative stability, they need to be able to hand her, him, them off to a partner church for ongoing care and discipleship so the pregnancy center can serve the next abortion determined client. And that's where we in the church engagement side are working really hard to really educate churches. This is one of the least talked about things in the church. It is in some ways the biggest uphill battle that we face. And some days it can be, I'll just be honest, some days it can be very discouraging when pastors will not engage on this topic. And when I have sat there with a pastor and with ministry leaders and said, do you recognize that on the low end, 25% of the women and men sitting in your church have an abortion in their past? This is not just a women's issue. This affects the men just as much as it affects the women. It looks different, and we need to be talking about that. But when you think about 25% of the people in your church This is part of their story. If 25% of the people in your church were dealing with a fentanyl addiction, you'd be talking about it. I have a lot of passion around this.
Yeah. Yeah. That so many golden nuggets there. It really sounds like CareNet is like the safety strap where the pregnancy resource centers are the buckle. You have to have both in order for it to fully wrap around the care of these clients. That is just such a cool thing to think about. That wraparound care is truly a full depiction of the gospel, is what it sounds like to me. That you are showing up for people regardless of their decision. And that is very informative for our listeners to hear as well. That we're not just for the ones who have chosen life. We're not just caring for the women who are facing that decision, but we're caring for them afterward. We're caring for that child and that parent afterward. That is so amazing. And you're absolutely right. We need to be talking, as Christians especially, this needs to be a subject that is readily talked about. And it seems to me, like I was going back to in your last answer, that talking is this common theme. We're not going to hide. We're not going to keep this in the dark. We're not going to cover this up in our own shame of whatever decision has been made, whatever mistakes or wrongly choices we've gone down and paths we've walked through. It sounds like we're talking. And you guys are really answering the call to that. And I just find that so inspiring. So thank you.
Well,
Thank you for
let me
sharing
also
that.
share this with you. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to help people understand more about what pregnancy centers as a whole do. One of the things that Ron Warren, who's the president of CareNet, is so adamant about is that we look at strengthening the family, that the men have, it takes two to tango, it takes two to get pregnant. So we want the fathers involved. And this has been a front burner, turned up high initiative for CareNet for the last several years, building fatherhood programs in the pregnancy centers, because we know that the father of the baby has the most influence in her decision. So we need to be strengthening him. We need to be really working to get him to step into his role as father of the child and hopefully, prayerfully, keeping that couple together and moving them towards marriage. This is the family unit is the building block of society. And when the family unit has been destroyed, as we've seen, we can just look around us and look at the fallout of the destruction of the family. Fatherlessness is a huge issue in our country. And we're reaping what we've sown in that. And that's, like I said, that's another area where CareNet is really leaning in and has created some incredible programs to educate fathers and to really build them up and have them step into the calling that God has placed on their life.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It's so true. It just radiates with truth, everything you've said. And on that note, do you mind sharing what fatherhood programs does CareNet offer, or even do they support pregnancy resource centers to offer, or for even for other family members? Do you provide support for fathers within CareNet?
Yes, we do. And all of this because we're the umbrella organization. The pregnancy centers, those local pregnancy centers are the ones who are frontline doing the work. We're helping to, like I said, to equip them. So we have a whole fatherhood program curriculum. It's actually just being released and it's called Welcoming Him. And so this is, hey, here's how to start a fatherhood program. Here's everything that you need to do. Here are all the best practices. And within that program, we have something called Dr. Dad. And this is a curriculum that the dads go through that is teaching them everything from how to support their partner. Hey, here's how to make a healthy smoothie for your gal, because she's probably got some morning sickness
I
and all
love
this.
that.
And so it's everything from that to how to change the newborn to what does it look like to swaddle a baby. And all of these things are hands-on that they do at the pregnancy centers. And we have a team, like I said, we have a fatherhood team that creates resources and teaches them. We have our national conference is the last week of August. And at that event, we will probably have anywhere from 1,500 to 1,700 people from pregnancy centers around the country will come. And this is going to be 3 days of intensive teaching and just filling up of their cups so that they can go back to their pregnancy centers and serve people. So there are going to be several breakout sessions I know that are going to be taught by our fatherhood team, just like there are several breakout sessions that are going to be taught about abortion recovery and how to engage in that side of it. This big national conference that we host is just one of the ways that we help to equip people for the fight.
Yeah, that is really cool because I can imagine it's extremely overwhelming for pregnancy resource centers to want to show up for fathers, want to show up for the other side of this. And so that is just so neat and special that you guys offer this huge conference and even just any support curriculum that is so necessary. So that is really cool. Thank you for sharing that. Switching gears a little bit here, do you mind sharing with us what type of medical professionals that CareNet recommends for clinic teams to have, or that even you guys have on your own team? Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. One of the criticisms of pregnancy centers is that we are fake clinics. We hear that all the time. You're a bunch of fake clinics, and that's what the pro-choice crowd will say. You try to pretend that you're medical and you're not. And that's a lie. So we have a national medical director. Her name is Dr. Sandy Christensen. She is a board certified OBGYN and she also runs a pregnancy center. So she understands everything from the medical side and also from the pregnancy center side. So pregnancy centers can do anything from, of course, pregnancy test to STD testing, STI testing, ultrasounds, and depending on how the pregnancy center is structured, there are some pregnancy centers that can offer medical prenatal care. It just depends on how they're structured, how they're funded. But within the pregnancy center, you will have people that are either registered nurses, so they have RN behind their name, and or registered diagnostic medical sonographers, RDMS. If she is an RN, she can be trained in ultrasound. And there are lots of pregnancy centers that do that. And like I said, there are some that will employ both an RN and RDMSs. All of that, anytime they are doing an ultrasound on a client, those ultrasounds have to be read by a doctor. So they have a physician who is overseeing their work and is signing off on all of their that are done. This is in no way a fake clinic. When I was on staff at my local pregnancy center in Charlotte, I used to get so offended on behalf of our medical staff because I worked with people that had RN or BSN or RDMS behind their name. And I'm like, there's nothing fake about that.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. And it's true. I think we hear that a lot, that these are fake clinics, and they're not, because there's actual medical staff that are a part of the team that are making this center work and this clinic available and making it an actual clinic. We wouldn't call it a clinic if it was not something we could offer you medical
What
professional help and
and
care. And so that's really,
what does that, how does that serve the client if you are providing him with false information that doesn't seek the mission that we stand for? We are standing for life. And in order for her to make a decision for life, she has to have good, actionable information. So everything that CareNet provides to our pregnancy centers is going to come with all of the documentation. Like one of the tools that we provide to pregnancy centers is a magazine called Before You Decide. And Before You Decide is just what it says. It helps people look at all of the options open to them. And so when we talk about abortion and abortion procedures, we have no need to lie about anything. We have no need to sugarcoat anything. And we're going to teach you this is what's going to happen if you have a surgical abortion. This is what's going to happen if you choose to have a medication abortion, abortion by pill. What we don't do is we do not use graphic images when we are discussing these things with clients, you are never going to see a picture of an aborted baby, a bloody aborted baby. We don't do that. And we ask our pregnancy centers not to do that. We feel like that goes to manipulation. We are going to show her this is what is going to happen in a surgical abortion. This is what is going to happen when you take the pill. This is what you might see after you take the pill. We need you to be prepared. And because when you think about Gen Z, who is our target market, these are people whose whole life is on this device and they can quickly search for what they're looking for. So if we're providing information that is not correct, they can find it. How does that serve them? How does that serve us well?
Yeah, that's a really good point. One last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jess. What kinds of resources or material assistance do you offer to pregnancy resource centers for when babies are already born, when they've chosen life?
Again, CareNet as a national organization doesn't provide that, but at the pregnancy center level, what they provide is, oh my gosh, what is it that you need? Do you need diapers? Do you need wipes? Do you need formula? Oh, you need size 4 diapers? Hold on one second. We're going to get those for you before you leave here today. The pregnancy center that I worked in, if a woman came in, she's in a crisis pregnancy and she's got her 2 other small children with her, and she, listen, I cannot afford diapers for the ones I have. We're going to be like, stand by one. And we're going to go get those things. And she's going to leave with stuff in her hands. Um, in the majority of pregnancy centers, they are going to be able to provide that kind of material assistance. And again, when you have strong partnerships with churches, you're going to be able to reach out to your partner church and say, hey, we've got a client facing this. I can tell you, when I was working in the pregnancy center in Charlotte, we've got a gal who's over here. I distinctly remember this. She's like, I can't have this baby. I am behind in my rent by 2 months. And she's like listing every single thing why she can't have this baby. And most of them were financial needs. I'm texting my executive director right then. She happened, again, hand of God is so cool. She happened to have been in a meeting with a bunch of local pastors right then. And she stopped and she said, hey, can I interrupt you guys right now? Here's the need that we have right now. This woman needs more than $900 in rent assistance. Who can help? The hands went up. The money was there. I got to I got to tell that client, we've got it covered for you. And then I got to 2 days later walk a check into the lobby of her apartment building and get her rent paid. And that happens all around the country in pregnancy centers, large and small. And people rise to the occasion. I have seen I have seen churches come alongside a client and throw a baby shower and provide every single thing that she needs for that baby for the first 2 years of that child's life. I have seen them walk into a woman's apartment and like completely redo her apartment because it was needed. I'm remembering a domestic violence situation where a woman was coming out of a domestic violence situation and got into housing but had nothing. And because the pregnancy center and the church could come together, she was outfitted with what she needed. We don't just care about the baby. That's the other thing. Like you hear that all the time. Oh, you just care about the baby. You don't care about this, that, and the other thing. And are you kidding me? That's why we want to help fathers learn what it's like to take care of a baby. That's why we want to connect you with the local church so that you can be discipled, so that you can know Jesus, and so that you can get in contact, be connected to somebody who can help you learn the skills that you need to get a better job, to help you revamp your resume, to help you get a job. This is what happens through the pregnancy center and through the connections that are made there.
That is so tender and just brought so much tear to my eyes because I hear even my own story and depicted in the testimonies that you're sharing of the church and the pregnancy resource centers and CareNet all coming together there just so beautifully. That is incredible. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's so good to hear. Just this has been a really fun series because I also have experience serving in a resource center, a clinic in my local area. And so I've got to see some of this stuff come to pass firsthand. But it's just so neat to speak to you, Jill, because you have your hands in so many different clinics, and you get to see and hear so many different things happening, not just from your own experience, but when you get to visit clinics. And this is actually happening state after state. And there's just endless help available. And I think that was our motivation for this podcast, was for this particular mini series, was to make sure that the truth got out there. And you've talked a lot about some of the things that you hear in regards to manipulation and coercion, and you've touched on that. Is there anything else that comes to mind when you've heard that, and how would you respond to some of these bigger accusations that we're hearing? Some of them are old school, they've been around a long time, and there's some newer ones. So what do you say to some of that? Do you have any examples?
It does not serve the client to do any form of coercion. That's not what we ask our pregnancy centers to do. Our job is to present truth and love. The Bible tells us that. We're using Jesus as our example. And so in helping to train pregnancy centers, we're not going to coerce her. We're going to say, listen, you need to have all the information about abortion and abortion procedures. Would you like to speak with someone who's had an abortion? Because many pregnancy centers have people like me on their staff to talk with them about that. And ask me whatever you want to know. I'll tell you. I'll tell you about my experience. And again, laying all of the options out for her. So when you think about how in the last 50 years since abortion was made legal in 1973, um, Planned Parenthood has had just really great marketing for 50 years. And they have been the ones who have set the narrative. And we have been desperately trying to reset that narrative and to be, every time we hear these criticisms, it's no, that's not how we do things. That's not who we are. We don't hide that this is a ministry, and we're going to serve you regardless of what you believe. Oh, it is, it's hard. When I think about Gen Z, and these young people have always been told that abortion is not only an option, it is your first best option. That's the marketing. And we have to fight against that tooth and nail. And so when somebody calls one of our pregnancy centers, we want to respond to that compassion. Listen, we know that this is a huge pressure on you, and we want to help alleviate some of that. How far along are you? We'll get you in today. Tomorrow, will that serve you to get? We want to serve them right away to help take that pressure off. The abortion clinic wants them in as fast as possible, and we want to slow that down as much as we can so that you can take a breath. I always think when we find out that we're pregnant and it's that oh crap moment, we start holding our breath. And think about it, when you hold your breath, your thinking gets a little cloudy, right? And so that's how I feel like our clients are. They're holding their breath and they're so stressed. And we just want to help alleviate the pressure so you can think. And so you can really think not just what's going to serve you in this moment, what's going to serve you a year down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. We're thinking long term. Actually, we have an eternal perspective, honestly. But let's get past this current crisis. I don't know if I answered your question, Jess. I just went off.
No, you really did. It's really good. And I think what I wanted to talk about next was informed consent, or even just how how CareNet undergirds or supports these clinics to make sure that they are making things available for clients to be fully informed. As I know for myself that during my abortion experience, there was very little information given for me to be fully informed. Had I been fully informed and I've seen an ultrasound, those kinds of things, I'm fairly certain I would have made a different decision, gone in a different direction. And just for the sake of our listeners, do you have any examples about how you guys recommend coming at each situation that way for the clients that come into these centers?
Yeah, these are such great questions. We do. I'm thinking about our, the different training manuals that we have, and we have one that's called Understanding Client Care, and it teaches the client advocates how to engage in that conversation with the client. And again, with the new curriculum that's coming out for the guys, welcoming him, how do the male volunteers engage the father of the baby and talking through the different options? So I mentioned earlier our magazine, Before You Decide. We also we have this magazine in a couple of different forms. There is one for men. I think it's called Before She Decides. So it helps them as men process through the information. And then Before You Decide is designed for women. But when you talk about informed consent, um, if she has said, I really think I'm going to have an abortion, or I have an abortion scheduled, okay, tell me a little bit more about that. Are you thinking surgical, or are you thinking medical, medication abortion? All right, what do you know about that? And then we're going to take this material that has been put together by our medical team. I don't know that you can see this, but these are all the citations. We're going to talk the client advocate, or depending on the pregnancy center, some pregnancy centers have nursing staff that speaks to the clients, which has another level of gravitas to the conversation when you're getting medical information from a medical professional. That being said, not all of our pregnancy centers have medical professionals that are acting in that capacity. So we want them to know, listen, we're gonna walk you through this, and this magazine and some resources that we have that are on tablets for the client to see. We Again, knowledge is power. We want you to understand what you're walking into when you walk into an abortion clinic. We want you to understand how that's going to go, what's going to happen to your body, what you're going to experience afterward. And it's all medically driven. We're not making stuff up, not telling stories. And then again, we're going to ask her, have you considered what this might look like if you carry and parent? Let's talk about what that could look like for you. What about adoption? What do you know about that? We always suggest to the pregnancy centers, it's a best practice, if someone is interested in adoption, that you want to provide at least 3 adoption agencies that have been vetted to be able to put her in contact with, and then walk alongside her as she's doing this. That's what the client advocates will do. Is we're not just wanting you to say yes to staying pregnant. We want you to have this abundant life. As Christ followers, and because we're a ministry and the pregnancy centers are ministries, what does it look like, the body of Christ? What does it look like for the body of Christ to come around this family um, and walk with them? We don't just abandon you once you say, yes, I'm going to have the baby. But how is that walking out what Jesus modeled for us?
No, that's so good. I love that. I really love how we keep hearing from the clinics that we've spoken with, and then from you, that there is so much truth available in documentation that's medically driven by medical professionals. It just means that they are really being informed. If they're willing to listen, they're getting actual accurate information so that they can make whatever decision that they feel is best with the knowledge they have in that moment. And I love that your clinics are available for that, because it's very much needed for sure. And I just love how truth is a focus for you guys, even if, they're not in the moment going in the direction that we know might be best for them, that you're willing to just put the truth out there regardless, which is so great. For me, I'm just going to ask one last question. And I know that you have personal experience with clinics, but also probably you hear good news, I would imagine, throughout your organization about things that are happening at clinics. But do you have maybe a testimony you could share about how, when truth was received from a clinic to the client through compassionate care, that the client, like, their eyes were opened, or they saw truth and they were like, okay, I actually am going to go in a different direction? Do you have a story you might be able to share?
There are a lot of them. So one of the other services that CareNet has, we have something called Pregnancy Decision Line, which is a hotline. So you find out you're pregnant, you are in that oh crap mindset, and you start Googling stuff. Pregnancy Decision Line prayerfully will come up at the top of your Google search. So when you call the PDL line, when somebody calls PDL and they're looking for abortion services, they're getting a registered nurse. And she's going to talk with them. Okay, talk me through what's going on. Help me so I can help find where to best connect you. And the goal of PDL is to minister to that person immediately and connect them with a local pregnancy center so that they can get services right there as soon as possible. Gosh, at least twice a week, I feel like I get an email. We will get emails from our PDL team that say, hey, just got off the phone with a woman. Here's a little bit of the situation. Please pray. And so they'll give us just enough information to know how to specifically pray. And I always love it when we get the follow-up that says, hey, last week, remember I asked you to pray for so-and-so with this situation. We connected her to this pregnancy center. She's had the ultrasound. I followed up with her. She's chosen life. And we see that a lot, not near as much as we would like, but we see that a lot. The other side of that too, we see also in that women who call the pregnancy decision line, or women who have gone into a pregnancy center and have chosen abortion, because the pregnancy center met her with kindness and compassion, even though she didn't make the choice for life, she's being connected again to the resources we know she's going to need in after abortion care. And our pregnancy decision line has taken phone calls from women who've chosen abortion and who are struggling and they don't know what to do. And PDL can get them connected to abortion recovery. And because that's the area that I work in all the time, I get to see that with the women and the men who are coming through our abortion recovery leader training, people that are being trained to lead abortion recovery Bible studies, to hear their stories of how God really intercepted them, and in the midst of their this despair, their grief over their abortion decision. Many of them have come to us, have come to this kind of work because they got connected to a pregnancy center, to hear their stories of redemption and how the Lord has brought them full circle. I've heard a couple of stories in the last 4 years of women who had gone to a pregnancy center for help, chose abortion, and then several years later came back and have gone through abortion recovery at that pregnancy center and now serve there. We also have the positive side of that story as well, where women who have come in a crisis pregnancy choose life for their children and then come back a couple of years later and either volunteer or come on staff at the pregnancy center. So we do get to see the God winks, I'm going to call them success stories, because whether somebody is coming for abortion recovery or is coming having chosen life, they're coming. And that's a success. And we're getting the opportunity to speak the gospel to them. And that's what we want ultimately.
That's so encouraging, those full circle moments and stories. I think it's so important for our listeners to be encouraged by your testimonies that you share today. So that's really awesome. As we wrap up, I have a couple more questions. What do you wish every person, pro-life or pro-choice, knew about pregnancy resource centers?
That the Pregnancy Resource Center exists to be of service, to exist to support, and that the Pregnancy Center, that they're not there to take away your choice. They're there to make sure that you have all the information to make a well-informed choice.
That is amazing. Wow. That is just a beautiful summary. How can someone support your work, whether through volunteering or donating or spreading the word? What can our listeners learn about how they can best support CareNet?
Well, like I said, CareNet we're an umbrella organization that serves pregnancy centers. There are a couple of ways that you can support this work. One is you can donate to CareNet. We are a donor-driven organization. So that's one way. And if anybody wants more information about what that could look like, you can either reach out to me. You guys will have my contact information. Please share it. And I'll put you in contact with the folks on our staff who can give you specific ways that you can partner with us. Of course, the other way is partner with your local pregnancy center. Like I said, we are donor driven, and we want you, like, the first place I want you is to plug into your local pregnancy center. So
All right. I think probably the last thing I'm going to ask you is what gives you hope to keep doing this work day after day? What would you say to that?
Oh, we serve such an amazing God, and that He searches for each one of us. The Bible says He leaves the 99 and goes after the one, and we have each been, are all the one. And for me, having chosen abortion in my own life and knowing how that played out, I don't want anyone else to make that decision. And so
Yeah.
I want to be a safe place where he or she can land and look at everything that's open to them. And I I think about, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I know that when I think
Yeah.
about what the Lord has forgiven me for, how can I not offer him to other people? And so
Right.
that's what keeps me going, is knowing that every life is precious, that we're all created in his image, and he has a plan and a purpose for every life, for every one of them, and that we should all have that opportunity.
Yeah. That's so good, Jill. Wow. You are the best. You have such a big heart. You're doing such great work every single day. I'm so privileged to have met you and have been able to work with you and have you help our team. And you're one of my very favorites. So thank you very much for being with us today. We'll be praying for your event that's coming up for the conference. And I know you guys are going to teach a lot of people, and there's going to be a lot of good learning happening there. So that's
Jess,
really good.
thank you so much for this
All right.
opportunity. And Autumn, it's been great to meet you. I I am just thrilled to be able to share what we do. And thank you for the opportunity to dispel some of the myths and to just talk about our work. It's a privilege, and I feel the same way about you. And what a joy it has been to get to know you over the last couple of years. So thank you.
You bet. It's fun doing this work
Amen.
together with you. All right. Hang on. We'll be right back with just to close up the show and offer some resources, and we'll be right back.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Goodbye Guilt and Shame. We hope this conversation with Jill from CareNet helped replace confusion with clarity and expose the powerful truths behind pregnancy resource centers, but specifically the work being done through clinics partnered with CareNet. CareNet exists not to judge or manipulate, but to love, support, and walk with women through some of the most difficult decisions of their lives. And as we've heard today, truth changes everything. We will provide Jill's contact information and the website for CareNet in our show notes. And if this episode moved you, challenged you, or even made you curious to learn more, don't stop here. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Like, follow, download, and share this podcast mini-series and bring awareness to resources that we highlight. You can find us on all the listening platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and more. Follow and support your local pregnancy resource centers. And if you have any questions or stories to share, please email us at ask@restorednation.org. We believe that every woman deserves the truth. Every life has value, and every person listening can be a part of saving lives, not by force, but through compassion and truth. Until next time, we're Autumn Smith and Jess Lane, reminding you today can and will be better than yesterday.